White woman calls cop on young black girl, speechless. When her mum arrives and she's the mayor. Picture this. A young girl, bundled up in her worn winter coat, steps into a high-end boutique with dreams bigger than the chilly air outside. She's saved every penny for over a year to buy something special, a luxurious silk scarf, for her grandmother, who has always put family first. But within moments of entering that store, her excitement turns into suspicion, then accusation, and finally, confrontation. This isn't just any story. It's a powerful reminder of how quickly assumptions can escalate into injustice. And when the police arrive, ready to believe the worst about this young black girl, no one expects what happens next. Because this teenager isn't alone. Her mother is on her way. And let's just say, she carries more authority than anyone in that room could have imagined. The setting is Riverton, a bustling city where life moves fast, but old prejudices linger beneath polished surfaces. Zoe Bennett, our protagonist, represents resilience wrapped in innocence. She's not some distant character in a book or movie. She's real, relatable, someone you might know. Her determination to make her grandmother proud drives her through months of odd jobs and sacrifices. Yet all of that hard work feels meaningless when Emma Whitmore, the store clerk, looks at Zoe like she doesn't belong. It's subtle at first, the way Emma sizes her up, questions her motives, but soon escalates into outright hostility. By the time accusations fly and handcuffs appear, we see how deeply rooted biases shape interactions in spaces meant for luxury, not scrutiny. Emma becomes the embodiment of prejudice, a woman so quick to judge that she doesn't stop to consider the truth. To her, Zoe isn't a customer. She's a stereotype come to life. And Officer Parker, he walks into the scene as if he already knows the script, his actions reinforcing everything wrong with unchecked authority. The tension builds as they corner Zoe, treating her like a criminal without evidence, without fairness. You feel it too, don't you? That pit in your stomach dread as you watch an innocent child face consequences for nothing more than being herself in a world that often refuses to see her clearly. But here's where the story takes a turn, one that flips the power dynamic entirely. Just as things seem hopeless, just as the weight of judgment threatens to crush Zoe's spirit, the door swings open. In walks Victoria Bennett, Zoe's mother, and unbeknownst to everyone else in that room, the mayor of Riverton. Her presence commands attention immediately. There's something about the way she carries herself, calm yet fierce, that makes even the most stubborn among them pause. When she speaks, her words cut sharper than any blade. "Take your hands off my daughter," she says, her voice cold enough to freeze fire. Suddenly the room shifts, the officers falter. Emma's confidence wavers, and for the first time since stepping foot in that boutique, Zoe dares to hope. What follows is a masterclass in accountability. Victoria doesn't raise her voice unnecessarily. Instead, she uses precision, demanding answers, while exposing the truth hidden behind lies. Security footage rolls, revealing exactly what happened and didn't happen in those critical moments. Every frame dismantles the false narrative spun by Emma and supported by Parker. Watching it unfold feels cathartic, satisfying even, because deep down, we all crave justice. But this moment isn't just about vindication for Zoe. It's about sending a message that racial profiling won't be tolerated, that abuse of power will be challenged, and that mothers like Victoria will always stand guard over their children. Still, the story doesn't end there. What happens after? The cameras stop rolling. How does Zoe process everything she's been through? Does Emma face consequences beyond losing her job? These questions linger as the fallout from the incident spreads far beyond the boutique's gleaming windows. Social media explodes, turning a local dispute into a national conversation about race, privilege, and systemic inequality. Calls for boycotts echo across platforms, forcing Evelyn Company to confront its role in perpetuating discrimination. Meanwhile, Zoe finds herself navigating newfound attention, unsure whether to embrace it or retreat from the spotlight altogether. Through it all, themes of empowerment and dignity shine brightest. Zoe's journey reminds us that strength isn't measured by how much you endure, but by how you rise after falling. Her grandmother, Evelyn, symbolizes generational love and sacrifice, grounding Zoe during turbulent times. And Victoria, she embodies leadership, not just as a public official, but as a protector of her family's legacy. Together, these characters form a tapestry rich with emotion and meaning, each thread woven carefully to tell a story larger than themselves. As the video draws closer to its climax, the unresolved tension keeps viewers hooked. Will Zoe return to Evelyn Company, now tarnished by scandal, or find solace elsewhere? What lessons will she take forward? And how will they shape her future? Most importantly, how will society respond to stories like hers? Stories that demand change, yet often go unheard. These are the questions left hanging, inviting audiences to reflect on their own roles in challenging injustice. So, as we leave, Zoe standing outside another boutique, finally holding the emerald green scarf she worked so hard for. Remember this: sometimes the smallest acts carry the heaviest significance. Buying a gift becomes an act of defiance. Standing up for your child becomes a stand against oppression. And walking away from a place that doubted your worth becomes a declaration of self-worth. Stay tuned for the next part of this gripping tale, where courage meets consequence and resilience redefines possibility. Zoe's journey wasn't just about buying a scarf. It was about proving to herself and the world that she could rise above the doubts others had placed on her. For months, she had carried the weight of sacrifice in every crumpled bill tucked inside her pink wallet. Her grandmother Evelyn had taught her the value of hard work, often saying, "When you earn something with your own hands, no one can take it away from you." Those words echoed in Zoe's mind as she walked into Evelyn Company. But they weren't enough to shield her from the cold stares and unspoken judgments waiting inside. The boutique wasn't just a store. It represented an invisible divide between those who belonged and those who didn't. Or at least, those who were assumed not to belong. And Zoe, with her worn coat and sturdy boots, felt that barrier like a wall pressing down on her shoulders. Emma Whitmore saw none of Zoe's determination or resilience when the young girl entered the boutique. All Emma noticed was what Zoe wasn't: polished, poised, privileged. In Emma's eyes, Zoe became a stereotype before she even opened her mouth. It wasn't maliciousness alone driving Emma's behavior. It was years of ingrained bias, the kind that makes people clutch their bags tighter or whisper warnings to friends when someone like Zoe walks by. But this time, Emma didn't stop at suspicion. She built a narrative around Zoe without ever asking questions, assuming the worst because it was easier than seeing the truth. When Zoe dropped the scarf, a simple accidental slip, Emma seized the moment like it confirmed everything she already believed. That single action set off a chain reaction, turning a harmless shopping trip into a battleground for dignity. Officer Parker arrived at the scene expecting to find guilt, not innocence. His presence only deepened the injustice, reinforcing the Systemic issues Zoe faced. To him, Zoe wasn't a child caught in a misunderstanding. She was a suspect, guilty until proven otherwise. The way he handled her, with force, with disregard for her humanity, spoke volumes about the biases embedded within institutions meant to protect. Parker didn't ask Zoe for her side of the story. He didn't glance at the security cameras rolling silently above them. Instead, he relied on Emma's word, blind to the power dynamics at play. His actions weren't just harmful to Zoe. They symbolized a broader failure of accountability, where authority figures too often act without questioning their assumptions. Meanwhile, Victoria Bennett's arrival transformed the room from a place of oppression into a stage for justice. Her presence wasn't just physical, it was seismic. As mayor, Victoria carried influence, but more importantly, she carried a mother's love and a leader's resolve. When she demanded respect for her daughter, she wasn't speaking as one person defending another. She was challenging a system designed to marginalize. Every word she spoke cut through the tension like a blade, forcing everyone in that room to confront their roles in perpetuating inequality. Parker's arrogance faltered under Victoria's gaze, while Emma's confidence shattered entirely. For the first time, Zoe saw cracks in the armor of those who sought to diminish her worth. As the security footage played, exposing Emma's lies and Parker's misconduct, the room fell silent. Each frame told a story. The polite request, the careful handling of money, the accidental drop, and each frame dismantled the false accusations hurled at Zoe. Yet the truth didn't bring immediate relief. Watching the events unfold on screen stirred emotions deeper than vindication. Zoe felt anger, sadness, and pride all at once. Anger at how easily people dismissed her humanity. Sadness at the realization that such prejudice existed so openly. Pride in knowing she hadn't let it break her. Meanwhile, Emma stood frozen, her earlier bravado replaced by shame. Parker clenched his fists, struggling to maintain composure as Victoria delivered a final blow. An investigation into both Evelyn Company and the police department's conduct. The fallout extended far beyond the boutique's gleaming windows. Social media erupted, amplifying Zoe's story and sparking conversations about racial profiling, privilege, and systemic injustice. Calls for boycotts flooded Evelyn Company's review pages, demanding accountability. News outlets picked up the story, shining a spotlight on the biases many chose to ignore. Officer Parker faced suspension, his career hanging precariously. In the balance, Emma lost her job, her actions deemed irredeemable. But amidst the public outcry, Zoe remained focused on what truly mattered. Finishing what she started, she returned to the boutique, not to confront Emma or reclaim her dignity, but to retrieve her wallet, left behind in the chaos. Holding it close, she walked out, vowing never to step foot in that store again. Across town, Zoe found another boutique, smaller and cozier, where no one judged her based on appearances. There, she purchased the same emerald green scarf, its silky folds carrying new meaning. This time, there were no accusations, no harsh stares, just gratitude from the shopkeeper and quiet satisfaction in Zoe's heart. When she handed the gift to her grandmother, Evelyn, tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes. She hugged Zoe tightly, whispering, "You've always been priceless, sweetheart." Those words lingered long after the moment passed, reminding Zoe of the strength she carried within her. But as Zoe laid her head down that night, questions still lingered. How would society respond to stories like hers? Would the investigations lead to real change, or would they fade into forgotten promises? And most importantly, How would Zoe navigate a world determined to define her by stereotypes rather than substance? These uncertainties hung heavy in the air, leaving viewers eager to see what came next. For Zoe, for Riverton, and for the countless others fighting similar battles. As Zoe stood outside the boutique, the scarf safely in her hands, she felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her: relief, pride, and a quiet kind of anger that comes from being treated unfairly. But more than anything, she felt empowered. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. No one gets to define your worth but you. It wasn't just about buying a gift anymore. It was about proving to herself that she could rise above prejudice, even when the odds were stacked against her. Still, Zoe knew this moment wouldn't erase what had happened. The sting of Emma's accusations and Officer Parker's assumptions lingered like an ache deep within her chest. She wondered how many others had faced similar injustices without someone like Victoria there to fight back. The viral video of the incident became a catalyst for change, not just in Riverton, but across the nation. People shared their own stories under hashtags like #ArchInjustice for Zoe and #EndRacial Profiling, turning Zoe's personal battle into a collective call for accountability. Evelyn Company faced immense pressure to address its culture of discrimination. Its CEO appeared on national television, promising sweeping reforms. But viewers weren't convinced. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. For Zoe, watching strangers rally behind her story brought both comfort and discomfort. While she appreciated the support, she couldn't shake the feeling that systemic issues ran deeper than one company or one officer's misconduct. Change wouldn't come overnight, and she understood that. Meanwhile, Emma Whitmore disappeared from public view after losing her job. Rumors swirled about her struggling to find employment, her name forever tied to the scandal. Some people argued that she deserved every bit of backlash she received, while others believed she was merely a symptom of a larger problem. Either way, Emma's fall from grace served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked bias. Officer Parker, too, faced consequences. His suspension turned into termination after the internal investigation revealed a pattern of discriminatory behavior. Ellis, however, chose a different path. Haunted by his role, or lack thereof, in stopping the injustice, he attended sensitivity training and began advocating for reform within the police department. Though redemption isn't always possible, Ellis's efforts showed that growth can emerge from mistakes. Back at home, Zoe found solace in the warmth of her family. Evelyn, her grandmother, held her close after unwrapping the scarf, tears streaming down her face. "You've always been priceless, sweetheart," Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling with love and pride. Those words meant everything to Zoe. They reminded her of why she had worked so hard in the first place, not for recognition or validation, but to honor the woman who had shaped her into the resilient young girl she was today. As Zoe wrapped the scarf around Evelyn's shoulders, she saw something magical happen. Evelyn smiled, a radiant, unguarded smile that lit up the room. In that moment, Zoe realized that some victories are quieter than others. Yet no less significant, Victoria Bennett continued to use her platform to push for systemic change. She introduced legislation aimed at addressing racial profiling in retail spaces and improving accountability within law enforcement. Her work inspired conversations not only in Riverton, but also in cities nationwide. People began questioning their own biases and challenging institutions that perpetuated inequality. For Victoria, this fight was deeply personal. She often thought about the countless other Zoes out there, young Black girls, navigating a world quick to judge them based on appearance rather than character. She vowed to keep fighting, not just for her daughter, but for all those who needed advocates in their corner. As the weeks passed, Zoe returned to her routine. Though nothing felt quite the same, she noticed subtle shifts in how people treated her, at school, at the grocery store, even online. Strangers approached her with kindness, sharing how her story had touched them. Teachers praised her resilience, and classmates looked at her with newfound respect. At first, Zoe struggled to reconcile these reactions with the girl she saw in the mirror. The same girl who loved baking cookies, reading books, and laughing until her sides hurt. But over time, she embraced these changes, recognizing that strength doesn't have to look loud or flashy. Sometimes it's simply showing up, even when the world tries to push you away. One evening, as Zoe sat on the porch with her grandmother, Evelyn posed a question that stayed with her long after the sun dipped below the horizon. "What will you do with this moment?" Evelyn asked gently, her eyes reflecting the fading light. Zoe thought about it for a while before answering. "I'll keep going," she said finally. "I won't let fear or doubt stop me from chasing my dreams. And maybe I'll help others chase theirs too." Evelyn nodded, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "That's my girl." In the end, Zoe's journey wasn't just about overcoming adversity. It was about finding purpose in pain. She learned that resilience isn't about avoiding challenges, but facing them head-on and emerging stronger on the other side. Her story became a beacon of hope, reminding people that even in the darkest moments, there's power in standing firm, speaking truth, and refusing to let others dim your light. As the camera pans out, capturing Zoe walking hand in hand with her grandmother beneath a starlit sky, the message is clear. Dignity is earned, justice is fought for, and love is the greatest legacy we can leave behind.